Hey there, podcasters and aspiring content creators. I am Oscar with the Pardon My Art, Unlocking the Business Side of Creativity podcast, and I'm thrilled to share my personal journey with you and give a massive shout out to Adam, who's been a game changer in my quest to help make my podcast more meaningful and monetizable. When I started my podcast, I was passionate about sharing quality insights with my creative audience. However, I often found myself wondering how to give more depth to my content and, of course, how to monetize it effectively. I've implemented Adam's strategies and the results have been incredible. I've not only seen a significant increase in engagement and listenership, but I'm working on a new and exciting revenue stream for my podcast, which is like a dream come true. So if you're a podcaster looking to take your content to the next level and monetize it effectively, I can't recommend Adam and Podcasting Business School enough. Head over to podcastingbusiness.school and start your journey toward podcasting success today. Trust me, you won't regret it.
Hey there, Pod Pals. Do you feel like you could use a little bit of help with your podcast launch, growth, or with converting your podcast listeners into becoming your best clients? I want you to head on over to my website, www.podcastingbusiness.school, and watch the 4-minute video that talks about who I help and exactly how I can help them out. Next, I want you to click on the Discovery Call button to set up a free podcast profit potential discovery call where we can talk about working together to help you reach your podcasting and online business goals. Head on over to my website, www.podcastingbusiness.school, and get signed up for your free podcast profit potential discovery call. What's up, Pod Pals? It's your buddy Adam. You are listening to Podcasting Business School. It's a show where I teach podcasters simple strategies to help them make more money with their online business. And today, I've got what I predict is my most quoted person that I quote on the show. I've got Rob Walch from Libsyn on here. And anytime you hear me mention any sort of stat about podcasting, it is directly from Rob. It is not of my own brain region. It is from Rob from the Feed Podcast and Libsyn. So, Rob, I'm excited to have you back on the show. It's been a few years. We're long overdue, but I'm excited to have you back on, man.
Adam, thanks for having me back on it. I appreciate it. And thank you for quoting me and giving attribution. I always like that, right? I always tell podcasters, attribution.
Well, dude, I'm a huge fan of Libsyn. I remember when I first started podcasting, I had no idea what I was doing back in the olden days of 2015. My microphone was made out of wood, like a wagon wheel. And I had a local insurance agent who I had heard had a podcast, and he showed me how to connect to SoundCloud. And I was like, wow, epic. And then I had another person recommend Libsyn. That was my next stop after about 30 episodes. And I was like, oh my God, the mind-blowing piece of technology that Libsyn had at the time. You can schedule your episodes in advance. I didn't have to publish as soon as I recorded. So I'm like, I'm in on this. So that's how long I've been on Libsyn, man.
Well, thank you. Thank you for being on. And I am one that uses the scheduling feature and then the geographic stats. Those are the two things that I always were important to me. I always wanted to know, like, where's my audience coming from? You know, or are they coming, from the US? Where in the US are they coming from? Kansas, Tennessee, New York? Is it my relatives? Is it strangers? Like, I don't know anybody in Idaho. I got downloads in Idaho. Yes.
Yeah. What an nice early win when you realize like somebody. I had a lot of people early on downloading from Germany, which I think has something to do with my last name potentially. Like the big Germans, like, ooh, all these vowels must be a German podcaster. So I want to dive right in, man. I have so many questions for you. I actually asked a bunch of my clients. I'm like, hey, I'm having Rob on the show. What do you want him to deep dive on? So the most common topic was, okay, Rob, if someone's podcast growth is stalled out right now, what's the first one or two things you're like, hey, do this or check this or this, and this may move you in the right direction?
So the first thing I say to them is, if you are going to find a podcast that covers a topic, because this is usually this is the low hanging fruit. This is the one that almost 99% of the time the person goes, oh wow. So this is the question I ask. If you were going to find another podcast covering the same exact topic of yours, what is the first word you're going to search for in Apple Podcasts for that topic? And then I go, does that match the first word in the title of your podcast? And almost no one ever says, yes, it does. So for example, I just launched a new podcast, and it's to cover the JFK files. And you know what I called that podcast? JFK files.
I was going to say Rob's Awesome McAwesomeness Show or something or maybe the word hustle in there somewhere. I don't know.
just JFK files. It's that simple. People forget in Apple Podcasts is like number one place where people search or listen to podcasts. And when you search, it's about the predictive results. And predictive results, because people see something popping up. Oh, that looks good. And they click that. They never even hit the search. They start typing it. They find a predictive result and then hit that before they even hit the search. So I say, if the most important, what are the words you're going to start typing to search for that topic on another podcast that you want to find? And if that doesn't match the first word in the title of your podcast, you need to change the title of your podcast. Even if it sounds like Yoda wrote the title of your podcast, doesn't matter. Get that title to match up under predictive results. So if you start typing JFK files, mine is going to show up. And if you hit search and return, mine will show up number one. Because I just named it exactly what people don't get fancy, don't get cute, right? That's what I tell people that on growth, because you want to be discovered, constantly being discovered and stumbled upon. And how do you do that? You optimize for search and understand how Apple Podcast Search works.
Yeah. I think a lot of people, I talk about on the show all the time, but people are trying to like name their show with Google SEO rules or YouTube SEO rules. It seems to be people put questions into Google. People aren't going to put like, how do I start a podcast into Apple Podcasts? They'll put podcasting tips or podcasts about podcasting or something like that. Do you see that? I mean, do you feel like that's an issue?
I mean, using Google search trends actually is a good way to figure out if you're not sure what you're going to search for. If you have a few different, and here's the thing I'll say, if you come up with what they could be it could be this term or that term or another term, take those three terms. If you're not sure the exact one, put them into Google search trends and see which of the three people are actually searching for, because Google is a really good indicator of what people search for. So using Google search trends to figure out that first keyword in the title of your podcast is a good idea.
Now, you mentioned this, the first word keyword concept, two Podfests ago. So Podfest 2024, I think it was, at the scary location with the giant tarantulas running around. That place got shut down.
Did it really?
Yeah, it's no longer in existence.
Oh.
Thank goodness. But anyway, I had so many of my clients and listeners freaking out. They're like, oh, Rob blew my mind with this first word keyword thing. And then they started doing dumb things. They started just like, they're like, here's the name of my show, but I'm gonna put 3 keywords in front of that. And like, so they started doing weird things with it. So
I am not talking about keyword stuffing. I'm like, rename your title of your podcast so that it's legitimate, but it's off of those keywords.
Yeah.
So, if I was to do my old podcast Today in iOS, and it was Today in iPhone, if I was to start it up today, I would have called it iPhone podcast, and I would call it iOS podcast. I would have iOS today, but Leo took that after I released Today in iOS, right? So Leo came out with iOS Today. I was Today in iOS. Leo Laporte did iOS Today. He actually had a better title than I did. And these are things you learn over time, and you learn as how the predictive results work. I've seen people. There was the story I always give is my friend, he had a podcast, it was called the Fifth Race Podcast, and it was about Stargate. And if you were a fan of Stargate, you understood the Fifth Race reference in the show, which is great. It's really an inside baseball thing, but nobody searches on that. No one searches out. They search for Stargate, right? And that's what I try to tell people is don't get cutesy. Don't do the Cheese Doodle podcast unless you're covering cheese doodles. And there was a cheese doodle podcast. It had nothing to do with cheese doodles, right? But the title was cutesy. Don't be cutesy. Be boring and get more people listening to your podcast.
Yeah.
And if you do rearrange the title of your podcast in the podcast itself, you can still reference it to the old way you did it. But don't start your podcast with the word "the" in the title. And this comes from a person, right? Where is it? Over here, the feed, right? So I am telling you not to do what we did, right? The feed is not the way I would have recommended it, and we would have come up with something better. But it was a cutesy title, but it's not an optimal title. So for growth, for people that are stagnated, that's one thing they can do right off the bat. And it doesn't cost any money. That's the beauty of it. And you can A/B test with it. You can try one title for a month or so and see if you've got any new upticks. You can see how many new subscribers you got in Apple Podcasts. Did that make a difference? And then change it to something different and see that month, did that cause any difference? So there are things you can do. It doesn't cost money. Now, if you want to spend money, advertising on another podcast in your genre is probably the best and most effective way to grow an audience, because you're catching two key things: people that listen to podcasts and people that listen to the genre of your podcast, right? So there's not many places you can actually spend money that you're going to find people that listen to podcasts and are interested in the topic you're interested in, other than in other podcasts about your topic.
So on that point, like I talk about Overcast FM ads quite a bit. They seem to be
Very
pretty
good. Yep.
easy and effective. And I wish I had found out about them earlier. I've been running, monthly ads on Overcast for years now. But from an advertising other people's podcasts, from like running ads and things like audio ads and things like that, I haven't really found a platform that I'm in love with for doing something like that. Do you have any resources on or any go-tos like where people are doing this well?
I'll be biased. I'll say Libsyn. You can go Libsyn and we can buy ad. You can buy ads through us on other podcasts. If you're in the auto ads program with Libsyn, so we have where we can bring you programmatic ads. If you're in that, we can take a certain percentage of whatever you make each month and reinvest it into ads on other podcasts. So there's that. Email me, rob@libsyn.com, if you want more information on that. ROB as in Robert, rob@libsyn.com. And so that's, you can do it through us, but then really you can do it, if you're going to do true crime, you may go to Wondery. If you're going to, there's other networks out there that cover different niches. So you may find a niche of fantasy football podcasters, and you might want to get out onto a bunch of different fantasy football podcasters. So there are other networks out there, but yeah, Libsyn, we're one of the biggest networks.
Okay. So I've been with Libsyn for I think 8 years now. I didn't even realize this was the thing. So what can I do as a Libsyn user? I want to pay you all to have an audio ad pop up in other Libsyn shows. How exactly does that work?
You can go to advertising.libsyn.com. So if you go to advertising.libsyn.com, and then there's, as an advertiser, you come in as an advertiser and then fill out the form, and our sales team will get back with you on that. So yeah. So make sure. Yeah, but it should be, I think it's the word advertising.libsyn.com, and I'm going to make sure on that.
We're going to confirm it for y'all.
Yes. Yes, that's it. And then click on where it says advertisers. There's an option as advertisers or podcasters. If you want to get ads, you click on podcasters. If you want to buy ads, you click on advertisers, because you're an advertiser at that point. So those, yeah. So you can, from that link, advertising.libsyn.com, you can either get ads for your show, or you can, or you can buy ads on others. Now, for getting ads for your show, that link is really meant for shows getting 20,000 downloads an episode or more. However, if you are less than that, if you're say 2,000 a month or more, then you can go to libsyn.com/auto ads. So libsyn.com/auto ads. And that's how you can get in to get ads brought onto your podcast. And you just need 2,000 downloads or more a month for all episodes combined.
Nice. All right. I'm learning things about Libsyn that I didn't even know existed. This is great. Okay. Now, I have a few kind of veteran/mature podcasters that have been around for a while, especially like, I started off in the health space. So I have a lot of friends that started shows in that 2015 to 2018 era. And here's what they're all freaking out about. They're like, Adam, at the end of 2023, I was doing 50,000 downloads an episode. Now I'm doing 10,000 downloads an episode. And I remember you mentioning something happened at the end of 2023 with Apple, with the way they do notifications and automatic downloads and things like that. Can you explain kind of what happened and why all the lower download numbers?
Yeah. So iOS 17 came out, and iOS 17 fixed a bug that was introduced in iOS 15. And this actually affects how many downloads you get per month. So for this was more of an impact on people that have a lot of episodes and we're getting a large number of downloads per month. And those are the people that saw a decrease. Wasn't so much on the per episode basis. It was on the total number of all episodes combined in a given month. And some shows, if they had 1,000 episodes, saw a decrease of 70%. And it was, what happened was when iOS 15 came out, Apple engineers said, wouldn't it be great if you were listening to a podcast and you stop listening for a while, and Apple Podcast stops automatically downloading if you go 15 days and 5 episodes not listened to. So 15 and 5, Apple will stop downloading that 6th episode. But it has to be both 15 days and 5 episodes. So if you're a daily podcast every day of the week, 7 days a week, the person would have to go 15 days of not listening. And they'd be well past 5 episodes at that point. On the other hand, if you release once a month, they would have to go 5 episodes would be 6 months later. It would stop auto downloading. But in any case, what Apple said was, wouldn't it be great if you stop listening to a podcast and then you come back to it at some point in the future, that we would go ahead and download the episodes you've missed. And what you think missed means is, let's say you were listening to a podcast from episode 500 to 550, and you stopped listening and you came back on episode 600. Right. So you would think, okay, Apple stopped downloading around 555, that they would download everything from 555 to 600. What Apple actually did was they downloaded everything you had never listened to. So they downloaded everything from 1 to 499 and 555, 556 to 600. So they downloaded all of that. But to make matters worse, they didn't download all of episode 1, then download all of episode 2, then all of episode 3. What Apple did was they downloaded a few byte range from episode 1, a few from byte range from 2, from 3, from 4, from 5. And then all these downloads, partial downloads are coming, and then your phone starts to heat up, and Apple goes, oh, wait, the phone's heating up. Let's pause the downloads, and we'll resume tomorrow. Well, they were pulling enough of each episode that all the podcast hosting companies went, oh, that's an episode. It's a minute delivered. It's an episode download, unique user. And when they brought out iOS 17, they fixed that and said, no more downloading of the old episodes. If you come back, we're going to start downloading from episode 600. We're going to forget anything you missed. People can go back and they can auto download it on their own. So that changed it. So you literally had people that would have that almost never would get all of the back catalog downloaded, but it would be partial over long periods of time. And what we were seeing, and we were seeing this, and we were working with Apple on this bug since iOS 15 came out. We're saying, hey, these numbers don't look right. These users, each person is getting 20 downloads a day, 30 downloads a day from this podcast. And that's not legitimate, right? We know that's not legit. So when that was fixed, podcast numbers dropped. So unfortunately,
podcasters freaked out.
Yeah. And what I tried to tell people is, look, your audience didn't change. Your audience size is the same. The number of downloads you get per month has changed, but now it's realistic. If you are in programmatic ads, you got a big hit. That would definitely have hurt you. If you were doing host read ads, no impact. And if you were a recent show and didn't have a lot of downloads, no impact. So, I saw a show that came out in June before iOS 17 came out in September, and had zero impact on that show because they hadn't had a big enough catalog. But I saw others that had 1,000, 1,500 that had 70+% hit on them. And this wasn't just Libsyn. This was every podcast host got this hit. If you were on Megaphone or Omni or Buzzsprout, wherever else you were hosting, everybody saw this. Everyone had a major hit on their numbers.
Well, this is one of the most talked about things that people bring up to me, that friends that I see once a year at Podfest, like, why is this happening? And so now we've got the 15 and 5 rule, and that's still holding pretty steady. The 15 and 5 rule that you talked about.
It's always been, yeah. Apple will stop auto downloading if you go 15 days and 5 episodes not listening.
Okay.
And that's always been the case. Again, what the engineers at Apple decided was, well, it wouldn't be great if we could download it. In theory, that's a nice idea. But then the practice was, oh, we'll just download everything that hadn't been played. It hadn't ever been downloaded and played, right?
Yeah.
And that caused issues. And there's still other issues out there, like with Spotify. There's still an issue if you change podcast hosts. Your URLs change on all your files, and that causes the end users' clients to re-download episodes, because Spotify has a bug in there or a feature in there that when the file URL changes, that will cause re-downloads. That also happens if you add or remove a prefix, like a PodTrack prefix. If you add it, all of a sudden there'll be an uptick, and you'll see for like 3 or 4 days, you'll see this. And this came to fruition in like December. A lot of people saw it when we removed all the Chartable, because Chartable closed down. So we had to remove Chartable from everybody's files that had Chartable in there. And for like 3 days, there was this really big uptick in Spotify downloads, and then it went away and kind of rolled off and went to nothing. And a week and a half later, you couldn't even tell that there was any impact. But for a few days, there was a big uptick in Spotify downloads.
Ladies and gentlemen, this is why I bring Rob onto the show. We get the inside scoop on all the stats and all the numbers. Like this is great. Now, another really hot button topic in all the podcast ecosystem is numbering episodes. Yes or no? Should I put episode numbers in the title? And just to preface this, I have been putting like a 3-digit number at the beginning of my titles just because I like a quick reference. I speak on stage a lot, and I'll be like, hey, and if you like this tip I just said, get on your phone and download episode 554, and they can just go and do it. But I also understand like the SEO perspective of things. So I get a lot of questions about this, episode numbers in titles, in the title itself. And then if we do, where do we position that? Any thoughts on that, Rob?
Yeah, I got strong. I am a strong believer in starting your episode title with the episode number.
Okay.
And there's a couple of reasons why. One, for interaction with your audience. It's a lot easier to say, hey, go back to episode 282, and I talked about this. Or go to episode 183 and I talked about this. When you have 1,000 episodes, 500 episodes, for your audience to go and scan through, and then a lot of these apps don't show you the dates, but they show the title. So if someone knows that they're going to go to episode 183 and you're on 550, 560, wherever you're at right now, right, they know roughly where in your list that is. But if you would say go back to March of 2018 and the app doesn't have it listed, where is that in that list of episodes? And the worst is to tell people, go back to the episode I titled this
about.
Go back. Oh, great. Now I got to search through 500 episodes to find the one with this title. Oh, thank you so much. Oh, you did me a favor. You did me solid, right? So making it easy for your audience to go back and find something, and for your audience to come into your show with feedback, right? Because I get this, I used to get this a lot, which was when we get it on the feed, someone will come in and say, hey, Rob, on episode 265, you were talking about this. And that is great, because now I know exactly which episode they meant. And I sometimes someone will go, hey, on an episode you released a few months ago, you were talking about this and this. And I'm like, oh, great. Which episode was that?
Yeah.
So if someone can give me an episode number, that makes my life easy to respond to what we meant, what we were talking about, or for the other listeners to know what they're about to talk about. So there, the interaction with your audience, especially if you have feedback, having that episode number at the beginning is really great. And having it at the beginning is also great for another group, people that are blind. So blind listeners, a lot of blind listeners for podcasts, being able with voiceover to find the episode number at the beginning is so much easier than them trying to find an episode with a certain title. And they know that they listened to episode 566 last on your podcast. Now they can go to 567 with voiceover. It's really easy when voiceover has that at the beginning and they're skipping through. So I would just say to someone, if you don't believe in using this, go ahead, triple tap on your home button or whatever it is to get voiceover on, close your eyes and go try to find an episode of your podcast. See how easy it is to find a certain episode as if you were someone who was blind. Put the phone under the table so you can't look at it and try to go fumble through it with voiceover until you find it and realize the pain that you're causing people by not having that episode number.
Wow. Rob, I got to be honest. I was worried to ask you this question because I was afraid you were going to tear me apart. I'd be like, no, this is dumb. So it like warms my podcasting heart that you are preaching the same things that I am. Now, here's why this is even an issue. I think it was like a year and a half, 2 years ago, another podcast hosting company, which shall not be named, but they created quite a buzz about this. They wrote an article saying that this was a terrible idea. To numbering your episodes was like, they made it sound like you are destroying your podcast growth by putting your numbers in the episodes. And I had to go and like do damage control. Like I've been preaching this.
Joe Rogan has a number at the beginning of his episodes. So destroying your growth about the number of episodes, boom, gone, done, toast. Right? Biggest podcast in the world by far. Forget anything you may have read about Midas Touch. Rogan is so much bigger than those guys still. And it has not impacted his growth one iota. And Joe has episode numbers at the beginning of his podcast too.
Done. Mic drop.
Yeah. So whoever wrote it, that article, sorry, they just don't really understand the space.
Yeah. Swing and a miss. Like I didn't agree with any of it. I was like, this is dumb. Like this does not make sense at all. And yeah, for every reason that you explained, like just the referencing and the quick, when I'm speaking at an event, people can just do a few thumb swipes. Oh, there's episode 337. Okay, there's episode 182. Boom, boom, boom. I'm downloading these and off they go. And they listen to all my episodes on the plane ride home. And I love that. So anyway, okay, that's a very controversial topic. Now, the big controversial topic of the day is, well, how has YouTube become the most used, most downloaded podcast platform? YouTube has eaten podcasting. Rob, help us. Like what's happening here?
It's not. It's bad surveys and questions to the wrong people, phrased the wrong way that got that. The reality is for 99.9, roughly percent of podcasters, YouTube is going to represent 2% of your audience or less. Are there some people that have big audiences on YouTube? Yeah. I mean, Rogan's got a big audience, but hey, you know what? Rogan's audience is actually bigger on the audio than it is on YouTube. And by multiple factors, right? And he gets about 1.5 million downloads per episode, or views on YouTube per episode regular, unless he has a big name guest. It's somewhere 1 to 1.5 million. His podcast downloads per episode are in the 6 to 7 million range on the audio side, right? So, but there's are other people. There's Timcast, which now is Rumble, and other people that have done well on video, but they are the small minority edge cases. Most podcasts, most of the audience is coming audio. Matter of fact, videos, everyone's going video. If you go into Apple Podcast, there isn't a single episode in the top 200 episodes overall that is video. They're all audio. There's more time in the day to consume audio. People forget this. There's more time in the day to consume audio. There's more time in the day, when you're working out, walking the dog, working. If you're working, I was like, if you're there working at your desk, have your headphones in, and you're listening to a podcast, and the boss comes around the corner, sees you, oh, good employee. He comes around the corner and you got YouTube up. He's going, hey, please send me a list of 5 things you did last week. Right. So
get the chainsaw out.
Yeah. So the audio has its place. I've seen so many people go like, oh, I got to get into video. Video is a big thing. Get your podcast on YouTube. And I'm not saying don't. Right? Libsyn for 10 plus years has had the ability to convert your audio to video, get it up onto YouTube. And we have the stats back. So I know where the numbers are, what the consumption is over there on YouTube. And again, I said, if you're lucky, you can get 2% of your audience. But it takes more time in the day. It takes more time to create a video episode. It takes more money and equipment to create video. It's harder to edit. I just try to say, if you don't need to do video and you don't want to do video, don't. Now, I'm not saying don't do video. I'm just saying if you don't want to, you don't have to. Don't think by creating video, you're just going to take your podcast to the next level, unless that level is the garage, right? Because a lot of people will have a really good audience on audio, and then they start doing video and they lose audience because they're not good at video. It takes them longer. They're not releasing episodes as much. They make them shorter because it's so hard to edit and do everything. So I am one that is not out there saying, hey, do video. Now, mind you, Libsyn supports video. So I am not saying this because I'm a hosting company that doesn't support video, right? There's others out there that don't support video, and you can question them, but we have always supported video from day one. You can, since Libsyn started in 2004, November 2004, always supported video podcasts. Tiki Bar TV was with us. Ask a Ninja was with us. Right? We were having some of the biggest early video podcasts. When I say really think about doing video, I mean it not from a bias point of view, but because I've seen what's happened to people when they get into video and they didn't want to. A lot of times the show's shut down.
Yep.
Right? They get burned out. It's like, oh, time to make the donuts. If you don't want to do video, don't do video. Just keep doing audio. Have fun with audio. And remember, there's more time in the day for people to consume audio than any other medium. And there's less competition. In audio, all you're competing with is radio and music and other podcasters. And there's only 450,000 active podcasts. On video, you're competing with the hundreds of millions of YouTubers, the TikTokers, the Instagrammers. You're competing with Xbox and PlayStation. You're competing with the NFL and the NBA, into a very smaller extent, maybe WNBA. But what, right? The thing is, anything that's video that you can watch, that's what you're competing with. On audio, you're just competing with a few different people, and there's more time to consume audio. So don't give up on audio, and don't worry about people saying YouTube is where most people consume podcasts. It's actually not. It is still Apple Podcast at 50%, or roughly 50%. And we saw this in the Triton report that just came out when they said, oh, an RSS, yeah, it's Apple Podcasts. And everybody, it's Apple Podcast number 1, Spotify number 2, Overcast number 3. Make sure your podcasts are on all those places, and you're golden.
Yeah. And for those of you listening in, because this is an audio podcast, an audio only podcast, I don't put, video out. I'm smiling in a huge way because I got called, Rob, I'm on Threads like a month ago, and I got called an audio elitist because I said this. I said, hey, I don't know if it's just me, but I feel like YouTube channels should stop calling themselves podcasts if they only have video. I'm like, there needs to be like audio to me is podcast.
You were 100% correct. I saw that.
Video is a YouTube channel.
I saw that on Threads. Yes, you're 100% correct. And they were wrong. Yeah. And
yes,
if you don't have, here's what I say to people. If you don't have an RSS feed and you're not an Apple Podcast, you don't have a podcast. And people go, oh, how can you say that? I can understand the RSS, but how can you say Apple Podcast? Because getting into Apple Podcasts gets you into Overcast, it gets you into CastBox, it gets you into like 400 plus other apps worldwide. Many apps you have no idea even exist that are in other languages that are Apple, they're podcast aggregator apps, all pulling from Apple's podcast public directory. So getting into Apple isn't just getting you into Apple, it's getting you into Overcast, it's getting into CastBox, getting into what are some of the other the Podcast Addict, Pocket Cast, right? Some of the other big apps. So it's not just about Apple getting into Apple Podcasts. It's about getting everywhere else. And then you also want to be in Spotify, which is a separate submission, and Amazon Music and Deezer and Ghana and JioSaavn. And there's a few other places that you need to submit. But at the end of the day, Apple, just submitting to Apple and Spotify is going to cover 85% of what's out there for consumption.
Yeah. I don't know who, I see you guys posting on Threads. I don't know who's in charge of that. But I swear, if you want to just stir it up, post what I post there about, I got so many comments, and I literally, this was my first ever troll that I've ever had that was like just chasing me everywhere. And every post would be like, you're an audio elitist. I'm like, what does that even mean? I don't know. You can still have a video show. I don't care. I just won't call it a podcast. So,
I'm going to go into Threads and I'm going to post, if you don't have an RSS feed and you're not an Apple Podcast, you're not a podcast.
And then frowny face.
Let's see how many people love that. Right. So if I go, if you're not an Apple Podcast and you don't have an RSS feed, your show is not a podcast.
He's posting it right now, y'all.
And I just posted it in Threads. Let's see how many people.
The storm is brewing. So, no, you have validated many of the things that I've been kind of preaching. And, there's so many exciting things going on in the podcasting space. Just to kind of bounce back to one term you brought up, and that's burnout. People have that sense of, I've got to create content. I've got to be all the places and do all the things that I have to do video and I have to do this. Like I'm a big, like this year, my theme is less but better. Simplify so that we can multiply. Like what is actually working to me? The other thing that I really piss people off about when I post online, I go, hey, I started podcasting in 2015. I've put out an episode every single week since 2015. I've never missed a week. And they get pissed. Oh, you're going to burn out. I'm like, listen, people don't burn out by releasing weekly content. They burn out from trying to create weekly content. And those are two different things.
Mm-hmm.
And so on the topic of burnout and simplification, like what do you think are just like the basic things that podcasters, if they are brushing up on that edge of like, oh, does this feel like it's a little bit much? Like what are some focus points just to kind of dial things back a little bit?
Well, one, there's scheduling, right? Let's look at scheduling is one of the most important things, right? You release an episode every week. Doesn't mean you had created an episode every week. You may have created 5 episodes in 1 week and scheduled them out over the next 4 weeks, right? And then even have one that's in the can that you always have, have scheduled way out that, hey, if I ever need it, I can pull in those publish date and just have it go live and just change the title on it. And it'd be my fill-in episode, right? So you can use the scheduling tools, your podcast host, to help with the burnout. I know a lot of people like John Lee Dumas, he does interviews. He wasn't doing interviews every day of the week. He would do them on Tuesdays. He'd do the interviews on one day of the week and then schedule out. So you can do that as well. So that's one of the key things. The other thing is having content created, ready to go. Just even if it's a script, having a script ready to go. So like I had the JFK files, right? I launched that with a preview episode with a trailer, but I created the first episode and I had it ready to go. So when last night, when President Trump said, hey, we're going to release tomorrow, I released an episode this morning so that I had episode 1 out this morning so that when people start going JFK files, there's a real episode there. And people are going to be excited. Okay, the files are going to come out. It's going to take time for Grok and get all those files in and AI to get it in so that people can go through 4,000 files. So no one is going to release anything today that has anything to do with the episodes releasing because it's going to take time to understand what's going on. But I wanted to have an episode on that day. So I was ready to go. You can do that too with other topics that that are coming up. Whatever your podcast covers, look at your calendar and pre-create content, get stuff ready to go. You can use that. AI to supplement some of that. You can ask AI, what are questions that people want to know about this topic? And then you go and get the answers yourself. You don't have to use AI for the answer. You can give your own knowledge and your own experience, or you can use like Grok and Gemini and ChatGPT and see what they all say on different questions. And then go, well, this one said this and this said this, but I think it's this. So you can supplement with AI to help you get content. And AI is getting better and better. I'm not saying have AI write your whole script, but some people do that. My first episode, definitely I leaned on AI to get me, because I was like, am I going to go through the 2023, every 2023 file that was released in JFK files to figure out a common thread? Or can I just ask Grok to do it for me and it'll summarize? And that's what I did. I said, no, this is a lot less work. I'll go that route.
Yes. Got to leverage that AI a little bit these days.
Mm-hmm.
Now, so we've discussed a few of the different nooks and crannies of Libsyn, and there's so much on there. And earlier we talked about SEO, and I've always kind of been telling people, and I learned most of this from you, of like, okay, keyword wise, SEO wise, organic discovery wise, whatever we call it, it seems like the name of our show and that first word keyword is really important. It seems like what we are typing in our host description inside of Libsyn is really important. And then individual episode titles for keywords important. Is that still accurate? Is there anything outside of that has a like, people talk about show notes all the time, and I'm always like, I don't know if keywords and show notes is really that big of a deal. So thoughts?
Artwork. All right, where is it? This here, however you go around. Artwork is important because so here's the other thing, right? When people do a search on a term and they hit the search and it comes back with some results in Apple Podcasts, again, I'm going to stick with Apple Podcasts because it's biggest, but this is true from other ones. Then it gives you a few different choices, and the choices then are the artwork, right? That's what's dominant in people's minds when they bring up 6 or 7 choices. You see artwork. does your artwork clearly convey what your show's about? Is it easy to understand? Did you try to put too many words in your artwork when it's shrunk down to 50 by 50 pixels that you can't read? There's some really bad looking artwork, and people go, well, it's good looking artwork. And I go, well, you know what? Go and look at what Apple has in new and noteworthy, because in the main section of new and noteworthy, because that's what Apple picked. So they wouldn't pick something they don't think artwork is good for. So you can get some good ideas just from looking at what's in new and noteworthy on the main page. But you should know good when you see it. It should be clean. It should be easy to read. It should be easy to recognize. And maybe even show some people that are your audience, even ask your audience, hey, here's 3 different pieces of artwork I'm thinking of for my show. Which one do you guys like the best? And see what your audience says, because they literally are your audience, right? Those are the people you want to get feedback from. So, I would ask your audience right now, every podcaster, come up with some ideas for your artwork to clean your artwork up, and ask your audience what they like best. And you can change your artwork at any time.
Yep.
And that's the beauty of it. Oh, when you do change your artwork, change the file name. Don't go, if it was logo.jpg, don't make the next one called logo.jpg, because Apple won't update if your file name doesn't change.
Pro tip. This is the inside podcasting that we come for here with Rob. Now, show notes, are keywords a thing for show notes? Are they like high powered inside of episode notes, or is it not that big of a deal? I get this question.
So show notes, first off, have no impact on SEO value, right? So in Apple Podcast, Apple only looks at 2 fields, the title and the author tag. Those are the only 2 fields Apple uses for search results. So title and author. They don't look at description at all. Whatever you put in description will not show up in any search results in Apple Podcasts. Most other apps don't look at it either. So description is for the convenience of your listener. What are you putting in the description of that episode that's going to help that listener? Something you talked about, putting links in the episode to what you talked about for attribution, for example. Those are good things. Giving some other information. Maybe you talked about something that was really complex, put it in writing, make it a little easier for people to understand. Having value for the listener is what the purpose of show notes are. All too often people think the purpose of show notes is to help you get new listeners. No, the value of show notes is to help your current listeners.
Well said. And before I forget, I want to add that one of the favorite aspects of Libsyn that I love is the snippets with the show notes. So another one of the questions I get is, Adam, I post things, I copy and paste things into my show notes, and it turns out into a big blob on Apple Podcasts, and it looks terrible. And if you have something, if you're on Libsyn, this is available. If you have something that's like, here are the standard links that I put into everything, or you can save different snippets like that, and it's formatted correctly so it doesn't show up like a big blob. I freaking love it, man. And it makes my show notes show up so much clean and easy. And it's better than copy and pasting.
Right. The other issue you mentioned is the blob issue, right? Here's the thing. Certain apps take formatted show notes and show them different ways. Optimize for Apple Podcasts. It's 48% of the downloads. Optimize for Apple Podcasts. Forget everyone else. If it doesn't look good in one of the other apps, you're never going to get it where it looks good in all of them. So just make it look good for Apple Podcasts, make it look halfway decent for Spotify, and then don't worry about anybody else. Sorry, and sorry, Marco at Overcast and everyone else, but it's Apple One with the biggest market share. Make sure it looks good in Apple Podcasts and halfway decent in Spotify. And sometimes that means, by the way, putting in a naked link. And if you want the link to work, sometimes you have to put in a naked link. A naked link is the full URL spelled out. Because embed links don't work in most places.
Yep. All my links are naked. I'm that kind of a guy. They're just out there dangling in the wind, and all ready and clickable. So I want to drop one last little nugget of truth here with Rob. I already know what you're going to say on this, but can you just explain ratings and reviews and how, like, I've heard you say that, like, these don't really mean anything as far as growth and SEO or anything. They're kind of social proof, and that's about it. So can you just back me up on that? I
Right,
tell people
right.
this all the time.
Ratings and reviews don't have any impact on your search results. Search results in Apple Podcasts are based on, again, the title and the author, and then how many times you've been subscribed to, or now the word is follow, how many times you've been followed all time in Apple Podcasts. Ratings reviews don't impact that. Rating reviews are mostly for social proof. If you plan to monetize, someone may look at how many reviews you have to see if your show really is that size. But honestly, if you're hosting at any podcast host that has IAB certified numbers, that's what they're more important, is that. So people go, why do you not tell people to rate and review? Because the value of what your audience is going to do for you isn't in the rating and the review. The value of what your audience is going to do for you is getting people to follow your show. So rather than asking your audience to rate and review, ask your audience to or put an X post up or an Instagram post up or something in Facebook about subscribing, following your podcast. If you're going to ask them to do call to action, ask them to do call to action that matters. And asking them to share your Apple Podcast link is far more valuable than asking them to put a rating and review in. So I think you have to look at how much you're going to ask and expect your audience to do, and what is the most value to you, and getting them to ask the people that they know, that you don't know, that don't know about you, to promote your show is the most important thing. Word of mouth marketing is number one. It's just like in movies, right? We all went and saw Sixth Sense because someone told us to go see Sixth Sense. We all did not go to see Lone Ranger because people told us don't go see Lone Ranger, right? And same thing with whatever the new movie that just came out that everyone's saying don't go see, which is what is it? Snow White, right? Yeah, that's like,
forgotten.
Yeah, Snow White. Don't go see that, right? So same thing. Word of mouth, get your audience to promote you. And then the best way to get your audience to promote you also is to have them interact with your show, have a Gmail account, have a call-in number. I do at my show, call 206 mom help to leave me feedback, and things like that. Having a way for your audience to interact with your show, make them part of your show, they become an advocate, an acolyte of your show, and they'll go out and promote it.
Oh, Rob, dude, this has flown by, man. This is so good. It's been too long. I need to have you on at a more regular cadence, obviously. But take a minute, take the spotlight, let us know about Libsyn, what you got cooking with Libsyn right now, and any important links. Go ahead and drop them.
Yeah. So again, the big one, if you are on Libsyn, or even if you're not, and you want to monetize your show, you get 2,000 or more downloads a month, and you want to monetize, go to libsyn.com/auto ads, as it sounds, AUTOADS, libsyn.com/auto ads. And you can sign up. Now, if you want to get the programmatic ads, you'll have to move over to Libsyn, but we can move you over from anywhere. And this is a great way to monetize programmatic ads, especially if you have a lot of old episodes, if you have content that's evergreen. A lot of people don't want to do host read, and these programmatic ads is one thing you can do. Now, if you do want to do both, you can do both, if you have a big show. But for shows that are in the 2K to 100K per month number, you can generate some good revenue just from programmatic. And I saw one guy with 100K a month downloads, generating almost six figures for the year.
Wow.
Yeah. So he's and it was a football podcast, and it was long episodes, and he put a bunch of ads in there, but he was generating 5 figures regularly per month just from programmatic ads. That's your performance may be very different. And I usually tell people, if you're going to do about 100K downloads a month and you're going to do some programmatic ads, you probably see about $2,500 a month for 100K, maybe a little bit more on your share take home. But I've seen some shows do much more than that.
Wow.
So, yeah.
Impressive. And the thing I love about Libsyn is you guys are always on top of things. You're always adding, you're always developing, you're always growing, you're acquiring other companies and things like that. So I love it. I'm pretty sure I got my code still active. So Adam, we'll get you some sort of a trial. So ADAM, much easier to spell my last name. Rob was like, let's use your last name. I'm like, no, that's a terrible idea. Lots of vowels in there. If you need to buy a vowel, then we're good, but not with the code. So Adam gets your free trial. Rob from Libsyn, Rob Walch, I appreciate you so much. I appreciate what you're doing in the podcasting space and for how long you've been just like this pillar of stats and knowledge in the podcasting space. So thanks so much for coming on today, man.
Adam, thank you so much for having me on the show. Appreciate it.
All right, Pod Pals, make sure you go and check out Libsyn. I'll have all the important links in the show notes, and those links will not be hidden. They will be naked links, and you can click on them all that you want. And with that, Pod Pals, I'm going to send you out into the world wishing you health, happiness, and many downloads. I'll see you on the next episode. If you need a little bit of help with your podcast launch, growth, or monetization strategy, head on over to my website, www.podcastingbusiness.school, and get signed up for a free podcast profit potential discovery call. During this free 20-minute discovery call session, I'm going to analyze your podcasting brand and tell you where I think you're missing on an opportunity for profits. Next, I'm going to tell you exactly what I suggest that you do as your next step. If I've got an offer that would help you accelerate the process, we can discuss working together as well. So head on over to my website, www.podcastingbusiness.school, and click on the Discovery Call button to schedule your free podcast profit potential discovery call.